try and you fail in your trying. Sometimes it get hard. Your hand, yes, so wrinkled and scarred. Thank you, Jesus. You got to just pick up your cross. When they talk about you, pick up your cross. I begin to feel a little better here. Pick up your cross. Ooh, you pick up your cross. When they talk about you, pick up your cross. When they scandalize your name, pick up your cross. When they stab you in the back, pick up your cross. You pick up your cross. You pick up your cross. You pick up.
Start your day off right.
Just getting your day started.
Early morning gospel on WBOK.
Trying to grow your business or increase traffic to your location? We can help. WBOK 1230 AM has a number of solutions that will meet your individual needs. Give one of our consultants a call today at 504-582-9420 or email us at info@wbok1230.com. And remember, an investment with WBOK is an investment in our community. Call today.
Hello, New Orleans. I am Frank Skurlock. I am a candidate as a no-party candidate for the wonderful city of New Orleans for mayor. That's right. I'm a new kid in town. I'm not a politician. I'm simply business, and I want no nonsense. We've seen the problems. We've heard the promises. Nothing ever gets done. So go to frankskurlock4mayor.com. This is paid for by the Committee to elect Frank Skurlock.
It's Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. The Good Morning Show is up next on WBOK, the station you listen to all day long.
WBOK New Orleans. Home of the Good Morning Show, 7 to 9 a.m. weekdays.
This news report is brought to you by New Schools for New Orleans.
New Schools for New Orleans, along with New Orleans Public Schools and the Cowell Institute, are excited to announce the launch of a new digital tool on the data dashboard. New Orleans Public Schools, 20 years later, a timeline of recovery, transformation, and growth. The tool provides data, information, and context on the past 20 years of K-12 education in New Orleans, the changes that occurred, and the outcomes these changes helped produce. Visit nolapublicschools.com/K20 to view the tool and learn more.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. New Jersey transit riders are seeing a 3% fare hike on trains and buses just a year after a 15% increase.
I mean, the service is lousy for sure, so I don't see why they should increase anybody.
It's not the best, but, you got to deal with it if you got to go to work in the morning, right?
Officials say the rise is needed to recover from pandemic losses, but commuters are feeling the pinch. New Mississippi laws take effect today. House Bill 1020 expands Capitol Police power in Jackson, while House Bill 1193 bans DEI programs in schools and mandates teaching only 2 genders. The ACLU is suing, calling the law discriminatory and unconstitutional. And Will Smith is addressing the Oscars slap again, this time in a freestyle on the UK show Fire in the Booth. He raps about respect, redemption, and even jokes about another Oscar nod in his track You Lookin' For Me from his latest album based on a true story. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Good morning, wake up. The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK.
Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Good Morning Show. I am your host, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. Shout out to my super producer, Nara Sanders, and my co-host, Will Sutton.
Good morning, New Orleans.
Listen, it's a whole lot of things, a whole lot of is going on. But at the 7:20 mark, we'll talk to Tiffany White from the Louisiana Children's Museum. She was awarded $2.5 million in grant money from the Lilly Endowment, one of the largest in its history.
That's helpful.
To help age up the museum by engaging older children and teens through a bold new vision. At the 8 o'clock hour, we'll talk to Councilman Georgia Russo about budgeting, yesterday's board review meeting, and then followed by Geruso, we'll hear from Councilman Freddie King on upcoming local events happening in and around the city of New Orleans, more specifically in his district. But as you know, we're going to talk about local, state, and national news in between all of our guests. So please, I hope you're listening. I hope you call. The number is 504-582-9422 if you want to engage in the conversation. There's a local event that is happening today at 6 p.m. at the community bookstore, whereby the community bookstore is welcoming former Senator Carol Moseley Braun. She'll be in conversation with Dr. Ashanta Wyatt, the host of the Good Morning Show on WBOK 1230 a.m. That is happening 2 days, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. It will be a discussion and a book signing. Senator Moseley Braun was the first Black woman elected to the U.S. Senate, the first Black U.S. Senator from the Democratic Party, and the first female U.S. Senator from Illinois. If you want to hear what that conversation is all about, stop by 2523 Bayou Road right here in New Orleans, or you can call 504-948-READ for more information. That is 504-948-7323. So again, that is happening today, 6 p.m. at Community Book Center. I will be in conversation with former Senator Carol Moseley Braun regarding her book, Trailblazer, Perseverance in Life and Politics. I'll see you there.
That should be a good conversation.
It should
be. For those who might be a little bit
excited.
younger, this was a historic and energizing thing when a sister who many thought didn't have a chance became a U.S. Senator from Illinois. It was electric, not just in Chicago and Illinois, but around the nation.
Well, I'm excited. And when I was talking to, anytime an author comes on, I blame my head and not my heart. I was thinking about the author series that happens over at Baldwin and Company. I recently participated in an author series there, but I need to put it in the front of my mind to always center Community Book Center as well when authors come on the show, and I refer them to the intellectual houses that are happening all across the city, and Community Book Center on Bayou Road is certainly one of those. So today, this evening, I will be there in conversation with former Senator Carol Moseley Braun, and I am excited about it. I love trailblazing women, trailblazing Black women, to be specific, or as my little cousins say, Pacific. So I enjoy it, and I'm excited to take part, and I'm thankful to Community Book Center for asking me to take part in it. So extremely exciting. But on the local level, we have a couple stories that we've been kind of talking about here. One in particular is this issue around this summer camp programming that supposedly took place at several institutions, one being Bricolage, the Y, and then one at the Hangout NOLA. We briefly talked about this last week, and hopefully we'll get to hear from the owner of the Hangout NOLA at some point to hear his perspective on this, but it's made the paper now. We talked about it here. Hundreds of New Orleans families are scrambling to find summer camp options after programs sponsored by the Asher Institute NOLA, a nonprofit headed by Pelicans player Zion Williams' stepfather, were forced to shut down Tuesday due to a lack of funding. See, I also take issue, and I know, he's the bigger name, he's censor, but if he had nothing to do with these programmings, I don't know why we're mentioning his name unless he's financially responsible. Is he in the documents? Is he in the paperwork? Other than him being the stepson of this man, what is his relationship to
he used that. He used that connection to get favor with a number of people, not for just this, but for the career of Zion Williamson, and he's used that in a number of situations for business dealings and all.
Well, so, I said that off air, and I knew that had to be true because I don't know any other person that could walk into all of these different businesses and come to into a city and just pop up a camp without any financial backing, because he apparently and allegedly he told families that he had the support of the city. Support and fiduciary responsibility are two totally different things. I can support something that does not mean I'm putting my money behind it. I can say, yeah, I think that's a good thing. I think the city needs it. But he had zero financial commitment from the city to move forward with this thing. So he started a nonprofit in February.
Only in February.
This is June, July now. We're in July now. And you're telling me somebody could just walk into our city, pop up a nonprofit, convince families that this is something that is good for them, and then leave them in a lurch. Somebody has to be responsible for this. The article goes on to say that the institute led by Lee Anderson established tuition-free programs at Bricolage Academy in Treme, the Hangout NOLA, a youth recreation center in New Orleans East, and the Dryas YMCA near Central City. Anderson initially told parents and the staffers he ran out of money to pay, that he was due funds from the city government that would keep the program afloat. I read a direct response from the commissioner of NOR, which is the CEO of NOR, which is Larry Barabino. He sent me a message. He said this program had nothing to do with NORC. NORC never promised him any funding. He never had a conversation with this gentleman. So just to be clear, but I had not gotten a statement from the city.
Right.
But now we know that there were no promises made from the city to give any money or any funding toward these this supposed program. So that's not true. Like, we're not going to just lie on city government and then pop up, businesses or programming and then leave children in the lurch. I have a problem with this. But he later said that the city had never actually committed to funding his program, though he said the city council expressed support for it.
There we go.
This is sounding pretty grifting to me.
Yeah.
This is giving grifter.
Yeah.
I don't like it. That's what it's giving. I don't want to call you a grifter, but this is some grifting behavior, because how do you tell families you have the supports and funding from city government, and then you come back and say you didn't have any funding
in the first place?
Though you may have had support, though folk may have said, I think this is a good idea. The kids need more programming. More is always good.
And he
are
pitched
great.
it as a filling gaps for NORD.
Now, see, that's why words matter, because what would give you the idea that there are gaps in NORD that are so dire that you could create a mirage of programming to fill a gap. So you create a bigger gap with the aim of filling the gap. Stop playing in our face.
Yeah, Joni Hess from NOLA.com did a really thorough story on this. And, so she talked with Anderson, and Anderson admitted that not only did he not have city funding, but he was seeking funding from businesses, and none of the businesses had committed to fund.
Well, the article
program.
also goes on to say that the Orleans Parish District Attorney Jason Williams also signed a letter obtained by the Times-Picayune that requested support for the Asher Institute from several foundations and business owners, among others. City Council members Georgia Russo, he'll be on shortly. We'll have conversations with him. And Councilman Oliver Thomas said they were unaware of possible commitments for the camps by city administration. Geruso leads the council's budget committee. A spokesperson for Williams and for Mayor LaToya Cantrell didn't return requests for comment Tuesday. Anderson said no businesses have committed funds to keep the programs online. When asked why he launched a program without securing the funds, Anderson said it was a leap of faith. Now we playing right? Because see, I have a problem with this whole thing, because there are actual people in the city of New Orleans who are actually doing real work without funding. They're funding things out of their own pockets. They're paying for things for children out of their own pockets. And we can just let a man who comes in and says, oh, I'm Zion Williams, a stepfather, and we get letters sent out from leaders in our community to businesses asking for funding to help this person. And then you start the program without an ounce of funding and talk about a leap of faith.
And this is tied to
a leap of frustration.
People's taking care of their families, their livelihoods. A lot of parents, summer camp is critical for them to stay employed so that the kids have something to do in the summer. So somebody tells you, we're going to provide a wonderful experience for your kids for 8 weeks of the summer. And that's very helpful to your scheduling and your planning. How am I going to get my work done so I can feed my family?
I'm talking about the much, like I have a huge problem with him, but he couldn't pull this off without the support of folk that are listed in this article, because it says, according to the DA's letter dated 2 weeks shy of the camp start date, Anderson's camp would fill a much-needed gap in youth support this summer, in that the New Orleans Recreation and Development Commission and other community organizations have limited capacity. So this, according to this article that you who wrote it,
Joni Hess.
According to this article, it doesn't say that Zion Williams' stepfather said it was a gap in NOR. It says the DA said on his letter that it will fit. So I can see why people probably were joining in. If I get a letter from the district attorney, he's a very powerful position in the city of New Orleans, asking me to help support a camp that's going to fill a gap for kids, people probably were pulling out checkbooks and saying they were going to sign on. So where did this alleged support, where did it drop off at?
Right.
So that's my, am I reading this wrong?
No.
According to Williams' letter, that means the DA wrote this letter, correct? Not the stepfather of Zion Williamson.
Right.
According to his letter, dated 2 weeks shy of the camp start date, Anderson's camp will fill a much-needed gap in youth support.
Yeah, the letter, all of this isn't in the story, but the letter was addressed to Congressman Troy Carter, Gail Benson, Michael Hett from the NOLA Coalition, Andy Copland from the Greater New Orleans Foundation, Weldon Golden from the Golden Family Foundation, Flogel Daniels from the Mary Reynolds Babcock Foundation, and Michael Williamson from United Way. Those are some pretty strong folks who have a lot to do with funding programs, but usually they schedule their programming. They're not going to fund something 2 weeks before it starts.
Well, first of all, there's no, now I can kind of understand why there was a whole group of folk out in the city of New Orleans that thought recreation was somehow dead somewhere. Because if we got our own city leaders going around saying that there's gaps in NOR, so much so that somebody could create a fake program to get real kids and real families involved, and they don't have no money to pay them, this is frustrating to me. I don't understand why, as adults, we just allow people to play on children's emotions and play on in the faces of parents over and over again, and nobody don't say or do nothing about it. Like the article even mentioned, it said earlier this month, the NOLA Coalition announced a partnership with UNO to provide services for city's youth, which was also touted as a way to shore up NOR programming. Man, miss me with the y'all. Do y'all feel like y'all face being played in? Because I do. I feel like that. We have a city that is refusing to actually give the money to the children for academic programming, right? Because they're saying they broke. We have an organization that seems that could pop up $2 million out of thin air and start programming all the way across the city, while they use the deficits of the people on the other side of the city to get the funding. And now we have a whole nother guy coming in from out of nowhere because he's the stepfather of one of the star players of the New Orleans Pelicans. And he could just use that as a platform to create a funding opportunity that by way of the DA's office. I am confusion. Is it that easy? So what about the grassroots people that's on the ground taking money out their own pocket to look after children every single day? Why are these people not running to help fund them? Because they're actually doing work.
They could probably replicate what they do during the year.
Zion Williams' stepfather.
They could probably replicate what they do during the year for 8 weeks rather easily.
Don't you,
with some money.
Don't you think with some funding?
With some money,
they
could do it.
Always trying to reinvent the wheel like New Orleans ain't actually doing the work. There's people actually doing the work. But y'all come in and watch what they're doing, and then y'all create the great value version of what they're doing, and somehow you find a way to get the funding and make it look like the people on the ground not doing nothing. Y'all not going to play in my face, though, because I'm not going to let you. I know people personally that are out there doing the real work on behalf of children, and they got to rob Peter to pay Paul to keep the lights on. But somebody could just come in your city and say, you know, I'm Zion Williams' stepfather, and somehow we get letters written by big dogs asking for big money from other big dogs.
Well, Mr. Anderson's Mr. Anderson's documents that my colleague Joni Hess from Times-Picayune has seen says that it would cost $1.5 million for the summer program.
I ain't gonna call you no grifter, but it sounds pretty grifting to me.
Now, you're closer to this than I will ever be. but just a guess. $1.5 million. You can do a lot of stuff in an 8-week period.
First of all, I ran 21st century programming for after school programming for a charter organization, and my budget wasn't $1.5 million. Let's be very clear.
Right.
Man,
so,
look,
I mean, for a third of that, you could do a lot of stuff.
It seemed like the first 20 minutes go by too fast for me, because every time I get my pressure up so I could put belt to butt round here, we always got to go to break. But I want y'all to stop playing with my children. And anytime you come over here trying to play with the kids, you're going to have to hear from me. And we got to stop allowing people to walk in with their suitcase and their nice suit and pretend like they know better than us. They got people right here in New Orleans doing some serious work with programming and helping to build up kids. Where is their funding?
Mr. Anderson, what you got to say?
Mr. Anderson need to get us a check from Zion or something, since he used that child's
what you
name
got to say,
all
Mr.
up
Anderson?
through the city. But the kids need to be paid. Hang-On-Nola needs to be paid. And any other facility that availed itself to this fallacy needs to be paid. We have to go to break, but when we come back, we'll hear from Tiffany White right here, WBOK 1238, on what New Orleans is talking about.
All day long.
Wednesday morning, I'm Daryl Forges with WDSU News, and here's your headlines. The U.S. Coast Guard and NOPD are searching Lake Pontchartrain after 2 men entered the water while boating. We're told 1 man was rescued by the New Orleans Police Department. No word on the status of the second man as of right now. This happened shortly before midnight near the Lakefront Airport. We're working to learn more about the condition of the man that was rescued and the status of the search for the second one. After federal funding cuts, nonprofits like the Homicide Research Center on Tulane's campus are asking the community for help to keep them afloat. Officials with the research center say they've had a 40% of their federal grant funding cut, impacting museum and library services. They say they've been forced to lay off half of their staff. Despite those cuts, officials promise they will continue to preserve the more than 900 collections of cultural history located at the center. And tomorrow is the start of the highly anticipated Essence Festival. And this year is filled with some star-studded headliners. Friday's lineup includes Maxwell, Babyface, Glorilla, the Isley Brothers, and many more. You can also catch Boyz II Men, Master P, Nas, Erykah Badu, and Jermaine Dupri throughout the weekend. Tickets, by the way, are still on sale. The fest runs from July 3rd through the 6th. I'm Daryl Forges, and that's your headlines for WBOK. Have a great hump day.
This is the Bloomberg Black Business Beat. Tyler Perry is one of the most commercially successful black filmmakers, and he's used his wealth and influence in the industry to turn Atlanta into a major media hub.
You know, it's really becoming a Hollywood West, and Tyler Perry is a large part of that, and certainly the largest personification of that.
That's Bloomberg Atlanta Bureau Chief Brett Pulley, who knows as well as anyone how much of an impact Perry has had on the city. And it's not just Perry's own productions.
A lot of film and television is produced here. Practically all of the Marvel stuff from Disney is done here, and a host of programs, television programs and films.
All spearheaded in part by Tyler Perry, whose studios employ around 5,000 people and sits in a historically black neighborhood. What's next? Tyler Perry plans to grow that big studio in Atlanta into a full-scale entertainment complex. I'm Bloomberg's Justin Milliner on the Black Business Beat.
Now more than ever, Lowe's knows you don't just want a low price, you want the lowest price. And with our lowest price guarantee, you can count on us for competitive prices on all your home improvement projects. If you find a qualifying lower price somewhere else on the same item, we'll match it. Lowe's, we help, you save. Price match applies to same item, current price at qualifying retailers. Exclusions and terms apply. Learn how we'll match price at lowes.com/lowest price guarantee.
Staples presents That Was Easy.
So, I was taking my side hustle full-time.
Bold move, my friend.
And I needed to find everything in one stop.
Like finding Bigfoot riding a unicorn.
Yes, so I hit the Staples Easy button. Staples had everything for a new office and print services for signs and brochures. Plus, Cindy, the Staples associate, helped me find the best tech for me.
Wait, no drama?
No, Staples made it easy.
For the products, services, and experts your business needs. Staples.
That was easy.
In-store, online, and on the app.
the National World War II Museum. Located in the Warehouse District of New Orleans, the National World War II Museum tells the story of America's experience in the war that changed the world, why it was fought, how it was won, and what it means today. Visit them online at www.nationalww2museum.org for time tickets and safety information.
Hey, New Orleans, look for important changes to your natural gas service. This summer, Delta Utilities takes over for Entergy Gas with a Louisiana-born, Louisiana-based approach to safe, clean, reliable natural gas. No interruptions or rate changes due to the transition, just dependable service and modernized technology to keep you running smoothly. Get to know us at deltautilities.com and stay tuned for more later this summer. Delta Utilities, focused on natural gas, committed to New Orleans.
Making a difference in the community. WBOK 1230 AM.
Good morning, wake up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK.
Wake up, New Orleans, and welcome back to the Good Morning Show. I am your host, Dr. Ashanta White. Shout out to my super producer, Nyron Sanders, and my co-host, Will Sutton.
Good morning.
If you are just joining in on the conversation, we were talking about the failure to relinquish payment to our babies for participating in a summer camp put on by Asher Institute NOLA, which we now know was spearheaded by the stepfather of Zion Williamson of the New Orleans Pelicans. When we were having that conversation, because there are three locations, Bricolage, the Hangout NOLA, and the Y, whereby this programming supposedly had taken place, and the facilities nor the babies have been paid. And I posed a question on here, like, why do we always allow these kinds of things to happen to our children? And one of my counterparts, another doctor in her own right, and very integral in what is going on with our kids and their academics, she said, well, it's allowed because it's not their children. It's not their children. That's a bail, right? Because we wouldn't allow certain things if these babies actually belong to us. But that's the reason why we allow it to happen in New Orleans, because we don't see everybody else's children as belonging to us, and that's a problem. But maybe Miss Tiffany White can help us, because she's here on behalf of the Louisiana Children's Museum. Somebody cares about the children, because they were awarded $2.5 million in grant money from the Lilly Endowment, one of the largest in its history, to help age up the museum by engaging older children and teens through a bold new vision. Good morning, Ms. White. Welcome to the Good Morning Show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning.
Listen, I'm excited to hear that the Louisiana Children's Museum was awarded this grant money, especially in these perilous times we're living in as it relates to funding being cut all up and through related to programming. We see a lot of institutions are suffering because they're relying on funding that does not seem like it's coming. So let's just congratulate you off the rip about securing this $2.5 million in grant money from the Lilly Endowment. So congratulations. Can you share how it came about and what it means for the Louisiana Children's Museum?
Absolutely, and thank you. We are very, very excited and honored to have received this funding. When I came into the museum, or this role, in 2023, I knew that this museum was amazing, and that it had a long history that was built on a great foundation and had great impact already. But one of the things that I wanted to make sure, me and the board, we wanted to make sure that we were still relevant to community needs. And so I launched a listening campaign and I spoke to lots of folks, elected officials, teachers, parents, children, donors, funders, local leaders, used the New Orleans Youth Master Plan, which, by the way, is an amazing resource that a city could have that has children's voice already in there. And one of the things that became clear was that children were growing out of the Children's Museum. Everyone I heard, a lot of people had this feedback of, well, my children are now older, so we haven't been to the City Park location, or my children are now aging out. And I had never heard that. I've been in children's museums and science museums my whole career. And when I thought about it, I realized that in most cities, the children's museums and the science museums work together. So children's museums take care of the younger children and have experiences for them. And then the science museum picks them up at age 9 or 10 and then takes them through high school. And because we don't have a science center, that was a gap. And so we began to look at how might older children begin to learn and grow at the Children's Museum. And the Lilly Endowment allowed us to put forth a pilot last summer that was very successful. And from that pilot, we were awarded the larger gift of $2.5 million.
Well, with so many museums and cultural institutions facing cuts, it certainly is great news to hear about getting money to help our kids, and in particular, the Louisiana Children's Museum, which has been a wonderful place for parents to take their kids for learning, and as I recall from some of your television interviews, for the fun that the museum can provide, because I think you're not only the first African American woman to head the museum, you also are the chief of fun.
Yes, absolutely. You know, that is our secret weapon. Is we bring folks in and they feel like they're having the most fun, but for us, it's all about learning, growth, and development. So we sneak that in.
So why was now the right time to evolve the LCM's mission to engage older children and teens?
So when we were looking at the Youth Master Plan and the needs of the city, what we saw were that even though there's a lot of nonprofits doing great work with teens, we still had that need there, that teens between the hours of 4 and 7 did not have as much to do. And for us, it was, okay, well, when we look at the hours of the museum, our hours for operation, we close at 4:30. So our building is open from 4 to 7, basically. And so this is an area where we can use a resource that is already there and allow children to continue to learn and grow. They're already looking at this place as a place that they've had some great memories as a child. So why not continue that on and allow them to continue to grow? And we know that if we give youth constructive things to do, then that takes away the option for them to consider other things, right? And so that was really what we wanted. We wanted to fill that time space of evening time and summertime, and we felt like we could do that with the resource that we already had of the building being in City Park.
So can you tell us more about this new exhibit, Character Connects Us? What can visitors expect, and how does it promote civic values and workforce development?
So one of the things that we wanted is we wanted to lean into what was already authentic for New Orleans. And we felt like community and neighborliness and service and taking care of each other, all those things were already things that were authentic for this city. So rather than going and looking at character traits that were not authentic, we leaned into that and we said to Lilly, this is our city. You know, we do a lot of things through community. There's Mardi Gras, there's Essence that's happening, you know, this weekend, festivals and those kinds of things. We want to lean into that. And we want to develop an exhibit for ages 8 to 14 that have that character development in there. So they're learning about character. They're deciding which character traits that they want to adopt for themselves. They're having fun in the same process. And so part of this funding, actually half of it, is going to bringing in teens, high school students, and doing a curriculum with them, and then having them work with the younger children, because we've seen the magic in that near-peer model. And then the other half of this funding is to switch out an exhibit on the floor that gives us something new, but also allows us to address the tween age with character development in a fun and innovative way.
And so there's also this the team mentoring program. How is that structured, and what outcomes are you hoping to see?
So for the teen mentoring program, we really are looking at this as an opportunity for teens to begin to grow and develop and practice some skills that they would have as they get their first job. And so it's a stipend-based program. We do have funding to a lot of the funding on that side of the program is going directly to the children, but it allows them to be able to do this program. We know that a lot of children can't participate in volunteering programs because they need to work. And so we wanted something that would provide some kind of funding so that they could participate. Learn and grow at the museum, learn different concepts, character, but also confidence building, presentation skills, resumes, all the things that they would get normally if they were in like a development program, a professional development program. And then another part of this program is they work with children in our museum and our families, and they are teaching them the concepts. So now they become the play facilitators, junior play facilitators, interacting and engaging with the families. And last summer in our pilot, what we realized is that, you know, these little children look at the teenagers like they're rock stars. Mm-hmm. They learn more from them than they do from us. So we feel like it's a great approach, great model for us to help the teens learn and grow while they're helping younger children.
So the museum had been closing at 4:30. Have you already started staying open later, or how is that working?
Not yet, and we actually wouldn't change our hours of operation, okay, but we would have the teens there later in the evening. So it would be closed, but basically for us to work with the teens, and that'll start in the fall.
Okay, so the teen program would be after hours until 7, so an opportunity for them to experience the museum at a older age and also learn some of the things that you're talking about. And about how many teens would have opportunity with these experiences?
So over the 3 years of this program, it would be almost 500 teens.
Oh,
that would be impacted.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And if a teen wanted to participate, is there a way that they can consider that opportunity?
Absolutely. So we will be putting specific information on our website, lcm.org. We also will be pushing that information out through social media. At Louisiana Kids is our handle on all the different social media platforms. And then, you know, they can always call the museum as well and get that information. But yes, we will be very, very robust and transparent in pushing that information out because we want to make sure that teens are aware and know that they can participate.
So, I'm sorry. So how can local families, schools, or community organizations get involved in these new programs taking place at the Louisiana Children's Museum?
So we have some partnerships right now with other nonprofits, and we're interested. If nonprofits feel like this is a great fit, or they feel like, you know, we can work together and 2 + 2 = 10 instead of 2 + 2 = 4, we are definitely interested in working with them. We want to amplify the impact. So if we feel like we can work with another organization and it makes the impact bigger, then we are definitely interested in that, and they can reach out to me directly. And we have our Chief Learning Officer, Dr. Blady. They can reach out to her as well, and we will begin to have conversations about what this might look like and how we might be able to work together.
So in your role as CEO at the Louisiana Children's Museum, how do you define success for the next phase of the evolution of LCM?
You know, for me, it's about making sure that the museum is relevant as it moves forward, that it's reaching high, because I feel like the potential, the unrealized potential, is very big for Louisiana Children's Museum. So to accomplish that, and to be a solution to the challenges, the needs, and the aspirations of our families here in New Orleans.
And how can folk? You say they can reach out to you directly. Is there a website, a phone number, any social media handles that you want them to follow?
Absolutely. So our social media handles are at Louisiana Kids on all the different platforms. Our website is lcm.org, so they can look for information there. And there's also an information on there. So if they want to send us a message, they can send us a message right through our website so that we can work there. If there are people that want to support and want to donate or want to support in a different way, we're also interested in that. We always need more resources. We want to be able to serve more kids, and the only way to do that is if we have resources. So if there are others that are interested in investing in programs at Louisiana Children's Museum, please, please, please reach out to me directly.
Well, we want to thank you, CEO Tiffany White of the Louisiana Children's Museum, for joining us this morning. We want to once again congratulate you on your $2.5 million grant award from the Lilly Endowment, which is one of the largest in its history. And it's going to help age up the museum by engaging older children and teens through a bold new vision. So thank you for joining us this morning. We appreciate you. And once again, congratulations.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me on this morning. I really appreciate it. Enjoy Essence this weekend.
Absolutely.
All right.
Have a blessed
We look forward to seeing what you'll do.
Listen, we were in conversation with the CEO of the Louisiana Children's Museum, Ms. Tiffany White, talking about her $2.5 million grant from the Lilly Endowment, and that came on the heels of the conversation we were having about this funding that never was. As it relates to the summer programming that took place under the guidance of the Asher Institute, NOLA. It's a nonprofit, I assume. Does he have nonprofit status? Mm-hmm. That popped up in February to put on this programming over the summer for our babies. He was able to get children and families inside of the programming by his association with Zion Williamson, who was one of the stars of the Pelicans. He was able to get families and children in the building because he was saying that he had the support and the financial backing of the city, which he had to come back and say he did not. I think, it's unfortunate that Zion's name is wrapped up in this, but we cannot act as if his affiliation with Zion isn't the reason why some of these folk probably believed in what he said he can do, especially when it came down to producing payment for services rendered. And the only folk who are losing here are our babies in these facilities who are without payment. And we will hear from Ray from the Hangout NOLA at the bottom of the 8 o'clock hour. So hopefully you're still listening at that time so we can hear from him. How did this come to be? Why did we go into an agreement without having was there a contract involved? I have so many questions, and I'm certain that Ray will be forthcoming with the answers. But there was some commentary in the chat that I wanted to bring into the conversation as well. And one of the questions in the chat I remember seeing was this idea of, did the lifeguards get paid? There was some talk around kids and our young folk participating as lifeguards over the summer. And there were some issues around payment of our lifeguards. Were our lifeguards paid?
Yeah, that's a different issue, but similar in that people not getting paid.
Yeah, it's a different issue, but it's very much on topic. I don't know about different issue. It's the same issue. It's folk participating in programming in the city of New Orleans and not being paid. It doesn't matter who the orchestrator of the activities are. There are folk participating in our city in programming for our children, and they're not being paid. I think that's literally the same issue. It's just a different body. I don't know who's responsible for paying the lifeguards. Is it North?
That's the city.
Is it the city?
That's
because now we know there's a difference between the city and North Sea.
Yeah.
So who's responsible for paying the lifeguards? That's a question. And as we talked about on yesterday, with this idea of the programming money for the children, the money that's earmarked for the kids that the city is the fiduciary agent for, but the money doesn't belong to you. Mm-hmm. That's another instance of our babies are supposed to be due monies that have not been paid to them. Are we going to make a habit of disservicing kids in the city of New Orleans? And are we going to be making a habit of kicking the can? Whose responsibility is it? Everybody's like, it's not me. Well, who is it? How can we get our babies paid for services rendered? This is not a favor they're asking you to do for them. This is not a handout. This is work that they've done, and they need to be compensated. And I mean, that's a full stop right there. So listen, we have to go to break, but when we come back, we'll hear from Councilman Georgia Russo at the top of the 8 o'clock hour. I hope y'all keep listening because we're going to keep talking about it right here, WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about.
All day long.
This is your news update for WBOK from WDSU. For all your news and weather, watch WDSU News, New Orleans' leader in live, local, late-breaking news. Today at noon and 4 p.m.
We're tracking another warm and muggy day across southeast Louisiana. Highs will top out near 90, and you can expect scattered to widespread storms this afternoon into early evening. Some could bring heavy rain, lightning, and gusty winds. Storm chances stick around midweek. Then it gets hotter heading into the weekend. From the WDSU First Warning Weather Center, I'm Raven Richard.
Get ready, New Orleans. Join us for the inaugural Blessed 26 Golf Classic, July 5th at Joe Bartholomew Golf Course, 6514 Congress Drive. It's a 4-man scramble format with a 9 a.m. shotgun start. Enjoy great food, music, and a chance to win a brand new car. Register now at blessed26.ticketspice.com. Save the date, Saturday, July 5th for the Blessed 26 Golf Classic at Joe Bartholomew Golf Course. For more information, please call 504-284-9985. See ya on the green.
Hello, New Orleans. I am Frank Skurlock. I am a candidate as a no-party candidate for the wonderful city of New Orleans for mayor. That's right. I'm a new kid in town. I'm not a politician. I'm simply business, and I want no nonsense. We've seen the problems. We've heard the promises. Nothing ever gets done. So go to frankskurlock4mayor.com. This is paid for by the Committee to Elect Frank Skurlock.
The New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation is the nonprofit organization that owns the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival presented by Shell. With the funds generated from Jazz Fest, the foundation invests in Louisiana communities through economic development, cultural enrichment, and free educational programs. To learn more about the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation, please visit us at www.jazzandheritage.org.
Switching to Progressive is a game-winning call. And that reminds us of other game-winning calls in the history of sports.
It was a doubleheader in August and really hot inside the concession stand. So instead of waiting for people to come to me, I figured I'd walk around yelling, "Hot dogs here!" And that's how I became the first hot dog vendor in sports.
Okay, not really a game-winning call, but it was a good call. You can make one too. Switch to Progressive and you could save hundreds. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states.
Good morning, Wake Up.
The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK.
Good Morning Show. I am your host, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. Shout out to my super producer and our intern babies back there behind the glass holding us down. And my co-host, Will Sutton.
Good morning, good morning.
Listen, if you're just joining the conversation, we've been having an in-depth dialogue about this idea of programming happening in the city of New Orleans and the funding that is not meeting the needs of the organizations or the children who have rendered services over the summer. And there's a lot of a lot of dialogue going on in the chat. But this is one particular comment that I hope the CEO of LCM is listening to. We were in conversation with her about this $2.5 million grant from the Lilly Endowment, and one of our listeners says that maybe the LCM can now address the cost of admission for more financially disadvantaged children of New Orleans so that they can attend the museum. So if you're listening, Ms. White, the folk are saying that the admission rate may be out of reach for a large population of our babies here in the city of New Orleans. Maybe that's something that we can look at and address.
Yes,
and
it's $18.
$18 per kid.
Mm-hmm.
Is there age requirement?
12 months and up.
12 months and up, $18. Okay, so yeah, that was one of the comments in the chat, and I appreciate all of you guys for engaging in a dialogue. One of our listeners said, "I want to make sure I understand. So does that mean NORD didn't have room for all of these kids for summer camps?" And so I think the question is being asked because part of the article is saying that this person, Mr. Anderson, popped up this summer programming to fill some sort of gap. That was, I guess he's alleging that there was some sort of gap by NORD that he needed to fill. Mm-hmm. So that's a question. Well, you know, I know Larry Barabino, the CEO of NORD-C, listens to the show, and maybe he could shoot me a message and answer that. Were there any, was NORD-C filled to capacity that would have created a need for additional programming, such as this organization coming in, popping up programming at 3 locations, the Y, Hangout, the Hangout NOLA, and what was the third one? Bricolage. So what I will say to the poster of that comment, I think having a plethora of programming is always good so that kids and families can have actual options to attend, because some programming, you know, have a focus on a specific thing. It may be a swim camp, you know, it may be an arts camp, it may be a STEM camp. So there are different camps offering different things, and if that is the case, then the more the merrier. But to use NORD, you know, and this is where my issue is coming in. That was my issue with the whole NOLA coalition thing. If you're going to create an opportunity for more recreational opportunities for kids, you don't have to do so on the backs of disparaging the other group of kids who depend on programming across town, especially when you're going to take your money and go elsewhere, which is going to undoubtedly leave those same gaps that you were pointing out. They're still going to be there. And so that's my issue. So if we're going to use NORD-C as some sort of basis for identifying gaps, don't come in and create a much bigger issue trying to highlight deficit areas for an organization that's doing a whole lot with not as much as you think they have access to. So let's be very clear. And I learned a lot from that clash that happened between NORD-C and the NOLA Coalition Group, because I learned a whole lot about what NORD is actually paying for that we had no knowledge of. And some of these people are actually doing programming at NORD facilities, and NORD is footing the bill for it, but then they're using it to create their own elsewhere. So I think I take issue with a lot of the messaging around those sorts of things. So to your question in the chat about did NORD have room for those kids for summer camps, I'll await the CEO's response, but what I can say is there are a number of camps all over the city, and they're focused on different things. So if your child is into STEM, then you're going to go look for programming that focuses on STEM. If you want to have more of a summery vibe where you want to learn how to swim, or you just want to participate in swimming, then there are camps that focus on that. My son actually worked at a camp this summer, and those babies looked like they went on a field trip every single day. He was having a time of his life. Shout out to Inspire NOLA for providing my son with that opportunity and providing a whole bunch of kids all around this city with the opportunity to participate in programming. But they looked like they went on a field trip every day, and there were different activities going on. But my son always came home and talked about shooting basketball with some of the kids who had some exceptionalities. And so he always had a nice story about things that were happening at the camp. So I want more and more programming to benefit more and more children, to make certain that every child has access to something to do over the summer. But what I do not want is for our babies to sign up to work and they give up part of their summer. 8 weeks is a large part of your summer to give up. And then you don't have the funding to pay the babies for the services that were rendered. That's the problem that I'm having. And so the number of programming isn't the problem. The more the merrier. But don't use Zion Williams' name to be able to create an avenue that you don't have any funding to ensure is a pathway to success for our babies. And that's my problem. And I also still want to know from the district attorney, like, what prompted him to sign on to to sign on to this letter, or to author this letter, or to disseminate this letter to all of these folk who hold big titles and big positions throughout our city and our state. And I mean, it even went to the United States Rep. Troy Carter, that letter. Why?
Right.
Why?
I'm not sure what.
Like, what was the backing?
Yeah,
was it just because he was the stepfather of Zion? I mean, I have these questions. I want to know.
Right. Yep. So, I mean, I don't know what.
You're pretty quiet on this one. Like, what's the issue?
Well, I'm concerned about. Well, I hate seeing this happen to these kids and the parents who have to plan their summers when kids are out of school, but also teachers. Because if teachers are not working during the summer, a number of teachers working at their schools, a number of teachers choose to work summer camps. And so that's something that they count on. And it's not like they're making a lot of money, but they love the kids so much and they want to continue those relationships and build relationships with those kids. But I'm also concerned about what role the DA had with this. I mean, did you write the letter, Mr. Jason Williams? Did you support the program? Did Mr. Anderson give you an indication that he already had financial backing and needed more? I'd like to know more about that relationship, those conversations or communications as well. And, I mean, if this guy pitched a $1.5 million program and you just started in February, that's kind of a fast ramp up for somebody who hasn't been doing it.
But he also said that it was for 1,000 kids. I want to know how many kids were at each one of these facilities.
Right.
That's what I want to know. Because if you are accounting for 1,000 kids, that's not taking into account the workers. I want to know if it actually ever reached 1,000 kids, because I want to know. Right. I want to know from Ray how many people were at the Hangout NOLA, because I could guarantee you, in my brain, I can tell you.
Right.
I can guess
because we've been there.
How many kids were there?
I mean, there's a certain number of people who can be in that place.
I mean, 1,000 kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So like for me, these are the things that I hate when people. You know what I'm starting to believe? That people have been grifting so well in the city of New Orleans that the people on the outskirts are looking in saying, oh, you could hit a real lick in New Orleans. Like, yeah, you can hit a real lick. And all you got to do is say that you want to do this for the kids, write it on paper, make it sound real good. And when the money come, we could just leave them in the lurch, because we've been watching them do it for 20 years down there and ain't nobody say nothing about it. So we could go set up shop in New Orleans. That's what we could go do. That's what it sounds like to me. What it sound like to you? A grift.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna call you no grifter, but it sound real grifty around here. Gotta go to break. But when we come back, we gonna hear from Councilman George Russo, because maybe he got some answers about if this thing was actually supported by the city of New Orleans.
Right.
And
if he's the budget chair.
Ever received any funding from the city of New Orleans. And I know you can hear me, Councilman, get your wheels spinning so you can answer these questions.
He would know as budget chair.
I got answers. I got questions. I hope you got answers, Mr. Councilman. We'll be right back. This is WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about.
All day long.
WBOK New Orleans. Home of the Good Morning Show, 7 to 9 a.m. weekdays.
This news report is brought to you by New Schools for New Orleans.
New Schools for New Orleans, along with New Orleans Public Schools and the Cowell Institute, are excited to announce the launch of a new digital tool on the data dashboard. New Orleans Public Schools, 20 years later, a timeline of recovery, transformation, and growth. The tool provides data, information, and context on the past 20 years of K-12 education in New Orleans, the changes that occurred, and the outcomes these changes helped produce. Visit NOLApublicsschools.com/K20 to view the tool and learn more.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. New York City just hit a record low for shooting victims, under 400 in the first half of the year, down 24% from last year. Meanwhile, Chicago is also seeing a major drop in violent crime. Here's Black Mayor Brandon Johnson.
The steepest statistical drop in recent memory, with fewer than 200 homicides in the first 6 months of the calendar year.
Mayor Johnson credits smarter policing and community efforts. Black New York Attorney General Letitia James has won a court order blocking the Trump administration's plan to dismantle key health agencies. The judge halted layoffs and cuts to programs like Head Start and CDC disease tracking, calling the move potentially harmful to public health. And the LA Dodgers face a civil rights complaint from America First Legal over alleged discrimination in their diversity policies just weeks after denying ICE agents access to their stadium. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Good morning, Wake Up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK.
The Good Morning Show. I am your host, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. Shout out to my super producer and our interns behind the glass holding it all together, and my co-host Will Sutton.
Good morning. Good morning.
If you've been listening, you know what we've been talking about. And right now, we're getting ready to jump into conversation with Councilman Joe Giarrusso as it relates to the budget and yesterday's board review meeting. Good morning, Councilman. Welcome to the Good Morning Show.
Hey, good morning. I heard Gristy, and then I was dialing in. And I was like, uh-oh, this is spicy already. Like, I haven't even done anything.
Well,
don't do anything that would have it applicable to you. You're not connected so far.
Let me say this before we jump into all that real technical stuff about the budget. I want to ask you about this this program that was put on by the stepfather of Zion Williamson, Asher Institute NOLA, which is a new nonprofit whereby he put on some summer programming at 3 facilities throughout the city, which was Bricolage, the Y, and the Hangout NOLA. But the babies have not been paid. And one of the reasons I want to ask you about it is because he being the stepfather of Zion Williamson, Mr. Anderson, he said that he had the support and the financial backing of the city when he established this nonprofit to do this tuition-free program at Bricolage and Treme, the Hangout NOLA, and Dryads YMCA. Is that true?
I'm not aware of it. And in fact, it's funny, I saw the story on one of the outlets last night, and I said to them, the way the story is written is that Councilmember Thomas and I are denying knowledge as if we knew anything about this. So let me take a couple of steps back, okay? Mm-hmm. Number one is, before, to your point about not getting very technical, what I tell people all the time is, if you want money from the city about something, the clearest path to doing that is go get the mayor on board, go find some champions on the council, just a couple, and then I would say almost always we fund the thing as long as it's legitimate and it makes sense for people. I don't remember ever having a conversation with the administration about this. I never remember any of my colleagues coming to me about it. And just so your listening audience knows, as budget chair, what I do before we open up budget hearings in October is I sit down with each of my colleagues and say, hey, can you give me your needs, your want, your luxury items? What are the things that you really think for your district are really important? This didn't come up. And, I think a lot of times people have a tendency, and I don't know what happens here. I want to be very clear about that, but they hear somebody in government say something like, well, that may be okay, or this doesn't sound bad, and they take that as it's a yes. And it doesn't mean it's a yes. Yes means yes.
Well,
and so look, we have added money back from NORD. We want to make sure kids are getting paid on time. We know how big a deal that is. We want to make sure kids have things to do over the summer. But this was not a program I was aware of. I saw Councilmember Thomas said he was unaware of it. And I will just also say this. Nobody from the administration came to me, or I'm aware of my colleagues, and said, hey, this is something that's important to us. We want to
just to be clear, Councilman, if there is a program like this, say it's not this program, but if there's something like this and the city is funding it, it would come before you and your committee as budget chair. Is that correct?
Yeah, we would fund the money. The answer is we would fund the money. A lot of times we do not know every single place than everybody who gets it. So that could also be a small possibility. But I will say this, Will, usually with things like camps and children's activities and things related to kids, usually the council knows. And look, I'll say this too, as much as we try and be as vigilant and watchful as possible, a lot of times one of my colleagues knows something a little bit better than I do. That happens. And so you go, oh, I didn't realize this was part of that. The fact that nobody's discussing this makes me scratch my head a lot more about the city's commitment.
Well, just to give you some clarity, Councilman, the article also says that Mr. Anderson initially told parents and the staff as he ran out of money to pay that he was due funds from the city government that would keep the program afloat. But he later said that the city had never actually committed to funding the program, though he said the city council expressed support for it. So that's why you don't know anything about it, because it never happened.
Well, and the other thing too, like you got to remind people all the time, the two things I just said, Dr. Wyatt. Number one, like that doesn't sound bad, or we should talk about this more, or I might be okay with that. Again, is not a you got it. It's not a yes.
Yeah.
And then number two, just because one member says something doesn't mean they speak for the whole council.
Right.
And so we have to frequently remind people, and I tell them, hey, I'm okay with this, but you need to go talk to the other 6 colleagues, or I'm not okay with this. Go talk to the other 6 colleagues.
Yeah.
And go do your thing. So yeah, it's a pretty big walk back. And again, I when you have 2 council members who are pretty attuned to budgetary issues from different parts of the city, who are listening to different people, and neither of them know, that's a pretty good litmus test.
Well, I only have one other question. I'm sorry. Before we have to actually talk about the heavy stuff, now that the services have been rendered, the kids have done the work, the facilities use their space. How do we get these folk paid if the city is not involved and this person doesn't have the funding to pay them? How do the babies get paid?
Well, I think they're going to have a conversation with. I think there's 2 things. They're going to have a conversation primarily with the administration, and then secondly, there's always paperwork that needs to be done, but really the most important thing is making sure the people get paid, right? Like, I don't want to set up an arrangement with somebody and then they haul off with the money and the kids don't get paid. So if it's going to happen, the city's going to have to figure out a way to pay people directly so it doesn't flow through. And that's not the way it ordinarily works. Ordinarily, you give the money to the organization pays the people. But if there's already been one problem, you don't want to make it worse by not paying people directly.
One more question on this before we move on. Did you receive a letter from District Attorney Jason Williams supporting this effort?
I have to go back and look. Well, I can't say I did get it. I can't say I didn't get it. And I don't mean to dismiss what another elected official sends me, but the reality is we get so many, and I get so many funding requests from people that it's hard to say. And so is it possible the DA sent something? Yes. Do I remember receiving it? No, but it's certainly within the realm of possibility.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, because I think that was a question that needed to be answered because the article doesn't say that you received it. The article says that it went to Troy Carter, our congressman, the Saints and Pelicans owner Gail Benson, Michael Heck of the NOLA Coalition, and a collection of more than 500 businesses and nonprofits focused on public safety and youth services, as well as Andy Copeland, the CEO of the Greater New Orleans Foundation, the Sazerac Company Chairman William Goldring, and the Goldring Family Foundation, and Michael Williamson, CEO of United Way of Southeast Louisiana. So it doesn't necessarily say that it was sent to the council. The article simply says that Mr. Anderson was telling folk that you guys supported him and the funding was supposed to come from you, which is why the payments had not been made to the individuals because he was still waiting on money from the city. And then he had to go back and say that money was never promised.
Yeah, I mean, I think the point y'all are making, and maybe I'll say it more explicitly, is like it started off with the city was supposed to pay me. Then it was, well, I'm not sure the city's supposed to pay me. Now it's, well, maybe the council's supposed to pay me. And when you've wobbled around that much in your explanation, there's something amiss.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your candor, Councilman. I know you didn't come here to talk about that, but I just had questions, and there were questions in the chat as it related to this, and I wanted to try to give as much clarity around it as I could. But here's my question about the purpose for your visit this morning. What is the fiscal health of the city of New Orleans?
Well, I mean, it's a really good question right now, and it's one that we're all struggling with because remember at the beginning of the year when we wanted to finalize the school board settlement, it was we're in a financial crisis. And then as we sort of bore down into that, it was like, well, it's not really a financial crisis. And then as my colleagues had a meeting on Monday with the sheriff revealed that she hasn't been paid about, I think, $5 million in her quarterly payment because cash flow in the city is not moving like it should. What is the reason for the cash flow not being where it should? Because the city was fronting money for those FEMA Katrina projects and it hadn't been reimbursed by the federal government. And then the city has been running a bunch of overtime because of all the public safety issues that have been having and not having enough people, and that's with NOPD, fire, safety and permits, DPW, et cetera. So I'm not trying to dodge your question, but I don't have as clear an answer as I would like. And so the hard part is, do I think we're teetering on any major problems? No. Do I think there isn't as much clarity as there ought to be, and that also we're in the middle of the year, and sometimes it takes a little bit more time to get as clear a focus as we want? Yes. So, there's definitely things that we need to watch. And look, the biggest thing I keep on saying too is whoever the next mayor is, I want to set them up for success and not coming in with, I have to rebalance a budget because of what happened the year or two before.
And so we are aware that there's been an update on the 2024 audit. What are your main takeaways, and what are some of the areas where the city is falling short or showing improvement?
Well, the audit got extended, they said, because of issues related to the school board settlement. And I think it was because the school board kept on asking how much money are we owed, how much money are we holding, and that delayed it. So the audit got extended, I think technically by another 90 days. And the accountant yesterday during the meeting said that they expect to submit the audit no later than July 25th. I think where the city has done very well is that it's reserved a pot of money where we have money to make us strong in terms of our bond rating and making sure that we can really borrow very well in the future. And that's really important because if you're sitting on like no cash, it's hard to get the bank to give you money. Well, the same thing is true for the city. So you want to make sure you're really strong there. And I think the city, we're getting ready to do some bonds to eliminate the judgments that are on the books right now. That's really important to me for two reasons. Number one, again, that's like the biggest liability the city has on its books is about $90 million that we owe people. Number two, if you went to court and you've litigated your case all the way and you have a judgment against you, then you need to be paid at some point. And we have judgments that were dating back to at least 1997. That's a long time ago.
Oh my goodness.
On the other hand, I think you guys kind of said what I think one of the really sort of more major problems is, which is the budget is technical. And so I think one of the things I struggle with a lot is how do you take some of the technicality out of this and make it simple for people to understand, simple to explain, and for people to see where it's going. And look, there's always these struggles about should we put more money in kids? Should we put more money in roads? Should we put more money in housing? Should we put more money in economic development? Should we put more money in this? And look, here's the other reality. I don't know how much the money is for these kids, but if the city winds up coming up with the money for the camp this summer where the kids didn't get paid, that was something we didn't budget for, right? So then what are we not doing as a result of doing that? So those are always the things I think you got to watch for. But I would answer kind of on the stuff that I think we all could be doing a little bit better. It's just how do you explain it? And I appreciate the opportunity for y'all having me on the show to try and make it as hopefully simple as I can.
So one pot of money would be the Wisner money. And the council won a judgment to expand the portion that the city receives from 35% to 100% per the will of Mr. Wisner. But now the mayor has challenged that because he wants it to keep it the same or at least not have the city get the 100%. So that's additional money that the city can or could receive for some of the things that you're talking about $9 million, I think. So where do we stand with that? And can the city receive the funds while the litigation moves forward, or does this challenge stop it?
All good questions. So the first one is we just don't understand practically, politically, legally, the administration's position on this one. And the way I describe it is if you can get 100% of a pie, you can bring that whole pie home. Why would you want to only take 35% of the pie? And the same thing is true, even more so when it comes to dollars. And Will, obviously, we've now hired a surveyor to look at the land and see how much it all costs. But estimates have been at least between $70 and $130 million, and could be more than that, could be less. But you're also right that the property generates between $7 to $13 million per year. And kind of going back to Dr. Wyatt's questions, those funds have typically been used for culture, for kids, for things in need. And the city got 35% of that money. We'll get a little bit closer to 50% now that we've settled with Tulane. If we settle with LSU, for sure we'll get 60%. But I don't know why you want to leave that money on the table. So that's the thing that we struggle with a whole lot. And look, the bottom line is we think the trust expired. We're entitled to all the assets, the corpus that's there, and we want to return that to the residents so we can figure out what makes the most sense and how we use that money for people. And then, Will, to your next point about like the money that hasn't been paid out over time, this is a little bit technical, and if anybody's questions, stop me. But the mayor and the heirs are appealing the judgments that we just got, saying that we're the owners and that the ratification agreement was null. Usually they would have to post a very large bond to go appeal that. We said we won't challenge the bond, but pay us back roughly the 50% that we've been holding back for the last few years. And I think that number was about $4.7 million. And if we get LSU's share, you can probably tack on another million, maybe a little bit more. And we're going to take that money and use it as the basis for the council's cultural fund. And again, the cultural fund, I won't say is exactly the same, but sort of mimics how the Wisner funds have been used in the past and trying to make sure it goes to those in need. So it's taking a revenue source and using it for what it's been used for in the past. And all we want to do is make sure we're maximizing that for the residents of the city of New Orleans.
So Councilman, let me say this to you before I ask you the next question. Your retirement from the council is denied as far as the chat is concerned. They say you can't go anywhere because you know the money, the policies, and the budget. And so they're not allowing you to not run for office again. They're not allowing you to go into retirement. I just want to share that with you because they feel like you're going to take too much information with you. And so I have my eye on who you're going to endorse because I think that's going to be a really big deal if you choose to endorse for your open seat. That's going to matter to the people of New Orleans because they feel like you've represented on the council really well. And I look forward to seeing who the people are that are vying for your seat and who you choose to endorse. So I just want to put that on your radar. The people are not happy about you leaving. They're not happy about it. But the council is reallocating over $12 million in capital funds across departments. What principles guide these reallocations and how do you ensure equitable investment across neighborhoods?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Look, I had one of my colleagues one time when we were getting ready to finalize the budget, asked, well, what are we going to do when you're not there anymore? And I'm like, guys, I'm not dead, right? Like, I'm gonna answer your questions, and if you need things, I'm not going to go away. So, okay, so that's my promise. Look, what we try and do, what I try and do is when it's stuff that the council really cares about, like this new allocation that we're going to do for $500 million for infrastructure, for buildings, for drainage, is where are the areas that are in need. And maybe one of the best examples I can sort of give about that is look at the early childhood centers that the Millages are funding right now for kids. District A, I think, has one, maybe two. The supermajority are in Districts D and E. Well, to me, that makes sense because the need is greater in other places. And so what we try and do with the budget is say, in my mind, where is the need great? Where have people felt like, they haven't seen the repairs or the things they need, or it's been such a long time, and how do we spread the money to those areas? I just think you can't be so super parochial and say, well, I live in whatever part of the city I live in, and that's the only part I care about. What you have to do is say, look, when we lift up New Orleans East, when we lift up Central City, when we lift up Algiers, we lift up the whole city. And so my guiding principle is like, what makes the most sense and how do we make it as fair as possible and make it within reason. And look, the last thing I'll say that too is think about one other part too. District B, Councilmember Harris's district, is where the economic engine of the city is. Well, when it comes to economic development stuff, they're just going to get more than every other district by a long shot because that's where the central business district is. That's where the warehouse district is. But it doesn't mean you say, well, we're not going to do a grocery study for District E because they're the only place in the city. So to me, it's always about that balance and understanding what the need is everywhere and trying to get the money to do as much good as possible.
Well, Councilman, as always, we appreciate you for always availing yourself to us. I feel like the time goes so fast and you have so much information. So you have to promise to come back. And I'm serious about what I'm saying. I think the city is paying attention to whoever you decide, if you so choose to decide to endorse. I think the people are paying attention to who you endorse as to the direction of your district. So we appreciate you for being here, and you have to promise to come back even when you're out of office because you have access to information that our people can benefit from.
Appreciate y'all. I'll be back anytime.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much, Councilman. We
Have a
appreciate
great
you.
day.
Listen, we have to go to break around here, but when we come back, we'll hear from another councilman, the one and only Freddie King, representing LGS. He represents other parts, but I'm from LGS, so I'm going to just say that with my whole chest. We're going to talk to him on the other side of the break. This is WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about.
All day long.
I'm Grant Sasheret.
And I'm Ro Brown.
Please join us for the Sports Report Wednesdays and Fridays
at 8 p.m. on WBOK.
The Sports Report. WBOK 1230 AM.
Good Wednesday morning. I'm Daryl Forges with WDSU News, and here's your headlines. The U.S. Coast Guard and NOPD are searching Lake Pontchartrain after 2 men entered the water while boating. We're told 1 man was rescued by the New Orleans Police Department. No word on the status of the second man as of right now. This happened shortly before midnight near the Lakefront Airport. We're working to learn more about the condition of the man that was rescued and the status of the search for the second one. After federal funding cuts, nonprofits like the Homicide Research Center on Tulane's campus are asking the community for help to keep them afloat. Officials with the research center say they've had a 40% of their federal grant funding cut, impacting museum and library services. They say they've been forced to lay off half of their staff. Despite those cuts, officials promise they will continue to preserve the more than 900 collections of cultural history located at the center. And tomorrow is the start of the highly anticipated Essence Festival, and this year is filled with some star-studded headliners. Friday's lineup includes Maxwell, Babyface, Glorilla, the Isley Brothers, and many more. You can also catch Boyz II Men, Master P, Nas, Erykah Badu, and Jermaine Dupri throughout the weekend. Tickets, by the way, are still on sale. The fest runs from July 3rd through the 6th. I'm Daryl Forges, and that's your headlines for WBOK. Have a great hump day.
Welcome to Chemical of the Month by the community scientists at Rise St. James. This month, we spotlight phthalates, chemicals added to plastics, especially PVC, to make them more flexible and durable. But there's more. Research shows phthalates may disrupt hormones, affect reproductive health, and contribute to environmental pollution impacting our communities. Join us as we explore how these additives shape our everyday lives and the world around us. For more details, visit risestjames.org. Empower your knowledge with Rise.
Hello, I'm Gary Clark. Please tune in to Dr. Clark 101, The Living Classroom, which is broadcasted weekly every Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. on WBOK 1230 AM on your dial. And as always, it's been a pleasure.
Making a difference in the community. WBOK 1230 AM.
Good morning, wake up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK.
Show. I am your host, Dr. Ashanta White. Shout out to my super producer and our interns behind the glass, holding it all together, and my co-host, Will Sutton.
Good morning, it's Hump Day.
If you've been listening, we've been talking. We had Councilman Georgia Russo on before the break, and now we have Councilman Freddie King represent that mighty LGS. I mean, he represents other parts of the city, but I mean, is that even important at this moment? Welcome back to the Good Morning Show, Councilman.
Thank you for having me back, Doc. Thank you.
No, listen, there's some extraordinary things that you are doing, some upcoming events. I know the Youth Symposium is coming up. I know there's Party with a Purpose, and all of it is surrounding the festivities of Essence. So you want to talk to us about the Youth Symposium? We can always lead with the children.
Absolutely. Thank you for that lead. So this is not, before people say, oh, it's election time, you're doing this. This is my 4th year doing this, where we invite young ladies from throughout the city. And we bring them to a very nice location. For the past 3 years, the Hotel Monteleone. This year it's going to be at the Basin Street Station, the rooftop over at Basin Street. And we're going to have, a very nice breakfast for the young ladies to attend and enjoy each other's company. But more importantly, we're going to have speakers at each table speaking to the young ladies while they're eating breakfast, talking about things from body image to social media pressures to just the everyday struggles of being a young lady growing up in the city. And we cap it off with a small Q&A where we have three older women come up and speak to the young ladies. So this year we're going to have a doctor who's a pediatrician. She's born and raised in the city, married with kids. We're going to have a entrepreneur going to speak to the young ladies just about their struggles, their challenges, about being a business person, being a mom, being a wife, just how to navigate this obstacle called life. And I think it's important that the young ladies get their attention. I remember one time speaking to a group of ladies, and they say, well, all of the boys get their attention, whether they play sports, they get attention, or whether they are in trouble, they get attention. But as for a young woman, we don't get that same attention. So that kind of was a light bulb that went off in my mind, saying we got to do something to address this void with the young ladies.
And what date is this?
That's tomorrow. That's tomorrow at the Basin Street Station. I believe it starts for 10 o'clock. Everyone is welcome. It's nothing that we really, really publicize because we keep it intimate, but we definitely want to let people know we have it. And it's a great turnout, and it's no cameras, there's no fanfare, just a really one-on-one conversation or group conversations for the young women in our city coming up.
You have done this kind of thing before, and I was fortunate to have the opportunity to go to one of these at the rooftop when you were doing it with young men.
We do it every year.
And it was a wonderful event. The young men really enjoyed and paid attention to the speakers. I mean, they were engaged and listening. They were attentive and not just eating at the tables.
Right.
That we were engaging in conversation. So that idea of the table talk was great, and I'm sure that'll be similar to what you'll have tomorrow.
Just the same thing. We do the young men at the end of July. We do the young women in the beginning around Essence Fest, and we want to make sure we do something for our youth during Essence, because sometimes it can be seen as just for adults, or whether the kids can afford it, or it's just not something interesting. I want to make sure they have something too. So that's why we have this. And the next day on July 4th, we're going to have our second annual day party it's going to be at headquarters on Partridge.
Is this the Party with the Purpose?
Party with the Purpose. Essence is known for a good time, and I saw a lot of events, and growing up, I'm like, man, it's not much for like college kids or just giving back or bringing them into the mix. So we decided to have a day party where we give the purpose of the party is, one, to enjoy Essence and to highlight what all Essence does for the city, but most importantly, we give a scholarship back to a student that's in college. We all know once you graduate college or high school, you get the gifts, you get the money, you get the pats on the back, but we often forget that child who is actually in school, who is struggling, who is trying to put gas in their tank, who's trying to pay their rent, trying to put food on the table, trying to pay for books. Those kids are kind of overlooked. So we want to reach back to those individuals, give them a scholarship to say, hey, we understand you're in the middle of it, but we haven't forgotten about you. So here's just a little something to help you tie up some loose ends, whether that's put gas in your tank, have a good meal, or pay your rent.
And that's on the 4th of July.
That's on the 4th from 2 to 5 at headquarters on Partridge.
Are there any guest speakers?
No.
This is what is just, it's just a party.
It's just a party. We're gonna
DJ
have
Jubilee.
No,
I'm just
we're gonna
asking.
Rob Smooth. Like
Okay.
you gonna have
I like Rob.
Rob Smooth. We gonna have a bit of it's gonna be we have a bar tab, so don't come there. We see like to thrill you, not feel you. So we're gonna have a small tab. We'll have some light bites. But come on now, it's really to get people in the party mood, and most importantly to give back to like I said, someone who's in college doing that struggle that we all experience, so they can feel like, you know what, I'm not forgotten about.
So who's your target audience for the 4th?
For the 4th, and anybody that want to come. We have a young lady who is a Etna Card graduate. She has a 3.5 over at LSU. She's going to her senior year, and she's going to be the scholarship recipient. But it's for anybody. Anybody want to come out in the area, have a drink, have some food, say hello, meet some friends. Come on over, say hello to the scholarship recipient, have a good time.
If a mom has a 16-year-old kid, and they want them to be introduced to some of the King's crew on the 4th, is that okay?
Well, it's not. I don't know how if that young of demographic would be represented there, because it won't really be teens. It'll be adults, young adults, college students, people our age. So a 16-year-old may kind of feel like I'm the only 16-year-old here.
Right.
But you have a 16-year-old young lady who wants to come to the breakfast tomorrow at the rooftop on Basin, more than welcome to attend.
All right, great.
So I'm going to ask you the same question I asked the councilman before you, and his he's of all things budget, but I'm certain that you could join in the conversation. We were talking about the fiscal health of the city of New Orleans. How do you see the health of this city as it relates to its finances?
Well, definitely needs some help. There's a lot of needs. Infrastructure is a big thing people talking about that for decades. We definitely need some help. There's a millage coming up in October that the city's going to ask people to vote for. Talking to some people in the administration, they were saying, and I'm not advocating on one side or the other, they were saying if this doesn't pass, it's going to be tough for whoever the next administration is to come in and get things done, because monies are needed to run the city, and right now the city could use some help.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, I appreciate the candor in your response. It's the same thing I told Councilman Georgia Russo. My issue when folk like me or any regular civilian ask a question, we don't like to feel like we're chasing our tail looking for the answer. We just want to answer. Like when we ask what's the fiscal health of the city, we want to know, because understanding that could possibly sway me in a position where I'm going to the polls to vote for the millage. If I understand that the need is crucial and the need is critical, then I'm more engaged about how I vote. But if we're pretending we got it and we ain't got it, come on now.
And not only that, Doc, it's important to make sure that everyone gets their fair slice, because I have a lot of people over in Algiers who are saying, why would I vote for monies to help the roads when our roads hasn't been touched in decades?
Yeah.
There are no street constructions happening in Algiers, so I made it very clear to Public Works that you all need to not just say it, but outline what districts are going to get what streets are going to be fixed. And they've come back to me saying, if this passes, here are some of the streets from Berkeley, from Woodland to Sullivan. LB Landry hasn't been touched in a long time. So people not only want to know, one, how is the fiscal health of the city looking, but more importantly, where is my money going? I don't want to pay for a tax or a millage, and I see everybody else streets get fixed, and I'm still riding around on this roller coaster in my neighborhood.
And I think that's a fair, equitable, because I don't like the word fair. Everybody knows that about me, but I think that's an equitable question. Because if I'm, because folk act like Algiers is not a part of New Orleans. Like, I don't know what school they went to and what geography class they sat in that makes them believe that it's not a part. But as long as I've been growing up, my zip code was 70114.
Yeah.
When I went to high school, it was 70131. That's New Orleans.
Same here.
So for me, I think it's important to understand how the pie, because Councilman Georgia Russo was talking about the pie and how it's sliced up. He was just saying Councilwoman Leslie Harrison's district receives more money just because of it's the central business district and the warehouse district and all of those things. But we still have to ensure that other districts around the city where people are relying on services and infrastructure to work. We deserve for our roads and services to work as well. So how does the council make that decision on how to slice up the pie? Is it done in a way that respects equity?
Well, it can be, and we need for the residents to speak up. I was talking to a coach on the West Bank, and he was saying my park could be improved. I said, well, you're the only person who has told me your park needs improvement this year. None of the other parents have told me, none of the other coaches. So how do I know that this park needs to be improved? Mm-hmm. But I know that this neighborhood over here needs to be improved because they send letters, they send emails, they come to meetings. They are very active. And he was like, well, we don't have an association. I said, well, there you go. You might want to first start to get your neighborhood association. It doesn't have to be formal, but pick somebody or pick somebody that's going to bring the attention or bring the issues to the elected officials. Every elected official, whether you're state, city, or federal, can't ride around every neighborhood knowing what's a problem. If you don't go to your doctor and say, Doc, I need a checkup, he or she's not going to know what's wrong. Mm-hmm. So just like the council or the elected officials, if you don't tell us these are our issues, how are we going to know this is what's needed, this is where the money needs to go?
Well, Councilman Litt, you know I always appreciate you being here, and shout out to you for the events that you're putting on the Youth Symposium, which is happening tomorrow.
Yes.
And then the Party with the Purpose. I think all of these things are needed, and sometimes we need to make certain that we amplify the things that you're doing, because you saying it's not you don't publicize it, but folk need to know that you're out there pounding the pavement and working on behalf of community with a keen eye on our children.
All the time.
I think that's important. So thank you for being here. We appreciate you. We know you're not a man of many words, but when you talk, it matters.
Thank you.
So thank you for being here. Thank you for your service to New Orleans, and we appreciate you. We got to let you go because we got to talk to Ray over at the Hangout NOLA.
Let's talk to
But
him.
we appreciate you. Are we going to break first, Naira, or are we going to keep going? So we're going to take a break real quick. Ray, hold on for me. We're going to catch you on the other side. But y'all, look. I want to thank Councilman Georgia Russo and Councilman Freddie King for availing themselves to us this morning to talk to us about not only city business, but all of the things that are going on around our city to help our youth. Y'all stay with us right here, WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about
all day long.
This is your news update for WBOK from WDSU. For all your news and weather, watch WDSU News, New Orleans' leader in live, local, late-breaking news. Today at noon and 4 p.m.
Scattered storms are possible across southeast Louisiana today, especially during the afternoon and early evening. Some storms could bring heavy rain, lightning, and gusty winds. Highs climb into the low to mid-90s, feeling more like 100 to 105. The good news, drier, sunnier weather returns Thursday, just in time for any 4th of July plans you have for Friday and for the weekend. From the WDSU First Warning Weather Center, I'm Raven Richard.
Get ready, New Orleans. Join us for the inaugural Blessed 26 Golf Classic, July 5th at Joe Bartholomew Golf Course, 6514 Congress Drive. It's a 4-man scramble format with a 9 a.m. shotgun start. Enjoy great food, music, and a chance to win a brand new car. Register now at blessed26.ticketspice.com. Save the date, Saturday, July 5th for the Blessed 26 Golf Classic at Joe Bartholomew Golf Course. For more information, please call 504-284-9985. See ya on the green.
Welcome to Liberty Bank and Trust, where your financial journey transforms communities. Since 1972, our customized banking solutions power your dreams and fuel your community growth. Every dollar you invest with us circles back to empower more people, ensuring opportunities for generations. Join us at Liberty Bank. Together, we empower possibility. Visit libertybank.net to start banking with purpose. Liberty Bank, there's freedom here.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues? Who are you? Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Hey everybody, it's Kimber White Dupree.
And it's Graylin Bryant Banks from the front porch. We're coming up next.
Good morning, wake up.
The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK.
Bender on the line. We want to talk to him about the summer program and the non-payment of the kids and him for the use of his facility. Good morning, Ray. Welcome to the Good Morning Show.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you for being here. So look, we have a lot of questions about this, and I want to just get straight to it. So how did it come about that programming would take place at the Hangout NOLA?
So I started promoting a camp that I was going to do. I've done this camp a couple of years since my wife and I have been at the Hangout. It's called the YES program, the Young Entrepreneur Series, where we teach kids a gambit of different entrepreneurial paths and goals and preparing them for that. And we had traditionally been doing it in the summertime, but in the evenings from like a 6 to 8 p.m. time frame. But this year we decided we wanted to do it as a full-fledged summer camp. So I started promoting it. And maybe within a few days after promoting it, a good friend of mine who was working at Bricolage mentioned that there was a sponsor who came to the school and who asked about doing summer camps throughout the city. He mentioned that he had funding, that he was going to be doing some stuff that he had a whole bunch of people in his corner that were providing funding. He obviously mentioned that he was Zion Williamson's stepdad, and everything was going to be in line, but I just need camps to do it. And so my friend mentioned, hey, Ray, you might want to reach out to him. I know you're doing your camp. There's a possibility that you can get sponsored, and it can be free for the kids because I was charging originally. And so I reached out to the brother. We set up a meeting. He came to my space early May. He came with nothing but positive energy. He was very excited about the space. He was excited about what I was doing specifically because I already had a curriculum set up. I had a teaching staff already in place. So he knew that it was going to be a great thing to do. And it's much so needed in New Orleans East, in the city in general, but we wanted to make sure we brought it out there. So that's how the original conversation went. We discussed that there would be a rental fee for my space, that I would be paid 2 weeks before the camp even started. So that was kind of discussed at the very onset of everything, as well as that all food, all the staff, all the supplies, everything we needed would be paid for through this sponsorship. So it literally was going to be free for everyone to just walk in the door and have an amazing summer. And unfortunately, it just did not They did not happen that way at all.
And I want to be one of the first people. I don't know if I'm one of the first people, but let me apologize because I feel bad that this happened not only to you but to our babies, and the fact that you already had programming set up and ready to go, and you kind of took a detour because you saw this other opportunity that will put you in a position to help more children, because of course you were charging, so not everybody probably could afford it, but if somebody's sponsoring it and paying for it, then more children undoubtedly would want to sign up for it. So I'm sorry that that it did not take place, and I want you to know here at WBOK we've been talking about this, and hopefully we keep talking about it, so somebody do something and make this right. But can you tell us how many kids were you servicing prior to this partnership with Mr. Anderson?
Well, it was very early on. So I had only been, before I had a conversation with him, I had only been advertising my camp for like a couple days.
No. I don't mean this year. I mean in prior years. How many kids on average did you service over the summer for your program?
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. So on average, we were having probably about anywhere from 50 to 60 kids on average.
Okay, and that was for your paid opportunity. I mean, for the opportunity where parents had to pay for their kids to participate. So right now, under this supposed partnership, how many kids were at the Hangout NOLA for this opportunity under Mr. Anderson in partnership with you?
Oh, gotcha. And just to be clear, when we did it on our own in the past, it had been free. Parents weren't paying anything for these classes.
Okay. Oh, good.
I was doing them through my nonprofit, and so my wife and I were basically fronting the money for whatever needed to be done for supplies and stuff like that.
Okay, because I thought you said that they were paying. I apologize for that.
That was because I mentioned that this year we were doing completely like all day summer camp, and I was charging for that
because you were switching from the 6 to 8 window into the all summer. I got you. Thank you for the clarity. So how many kids signed up once you went into this supposed partnership with Mr. Anderson to have this fully funded program at your establishment? How many kids were you servicing this summer?
So on average, we were servicing probably about 50 kids a day, but we had 80 kids on the roster and probably about 25 kids on our waiting list. Some kids did not sign up for the entire summer, so the numbers would fluctuate on how many we would see each day. But yeah, it was a lot of kids in general.
Trust me, I know exactly
roster,
how it works. Will and I were talking off air, and I was giving him a baseline of how many kids I thought were coming to each one of those facilities. And I know some kids are going to come and stop. Some kids are going to join in mid program. That's what happens. That's the nature of programming. But my goal with this conversation with you is to amplify your perspective here. So tell me, can you tell us about how much money you're out? Like, what are you waiting on? How many people are you waiting to pay? How much money have you put out and you have not received anything? Like, we need to understand what is the cost that you've put up out of pocket.
So the contract value for what I was supposed to be paid for my space was $40,000. And I have not received but $1,000 of that.
Oh my goodness.
That was to cover the entire time frame of the venue space for the camp. So all of the weeks that we were going to be there, which it technically was supposed to start the week of Memorial Day, but because I did not have and still don't have a signed contract after several attempts to get it signed, they never signed my contract. I had been attempting on several occasions to do that prior to the camp starting when it was still in jeopardy. I delayed the camp start to June 2nd, and then I still did not have a signed contract after several attempts, even criticized for asking to get it signed, because I wanted to have that level of, just having that level of excellence already in place. But I had already made commitments to these families. I had already made commitments to staff members who are educators and turned down jobs to be here. So I still felt the need to move forward.
I want to be very clear, Mr. Bender, because there are people in the comments asking. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about the Asher Institute NOLA, a nonprofit headed by Mr. Anderson, who is the stepfather of Zion Williamson of the New Orleans Pelicans. And I continue to say that because I believe Mr. Lee Anderson used his relationship and affiliation with Zion to get folk to buy into this opportunity. And I hate that for Zion because nowhere have I read that he had any direct relationship to this programming. It's just that he's the stepson of Mr. Lee Anderson, who established a tuition-free program at Bricolage, the Hangout NOLA, and at Dryas YMCA. And though we have not spoken to anyone from Bricolage or anyone from the Dryas YMCA, we are on the line right now with Mr. Ray Bender, the owner-operator of the Hangout NOLA. And he has not been paid for the use of his facilities, which was a $40,000 price tag. He's only received $1,000 of that amount, and he does not have a signed contract, even though he's been pushing for a signed contract. And even without the signed contract, he was hosting the children in his facility. For how many weeks, Mr. Bender, have you been doing this without payment?
So we were in the 5th week when we stopped the camp. So we had completed 4, and we went through the first day of the 5th week of the camp.
Mm. And so you mentioned that there are some teachers who took on the opportunity to work there rather than take other jobs. About how many people are we talking about?
So we had a total of, including myself, we had a total of nine individuals on staff.
Yeah.
Of those, I think six of them were educators. We also had a gentleman who was basically like an interventionist helping. I was the camp coordinator, and we had a security guard there as well.
Can I ask you this, Ray? And this is no shot at you, but I want to understand how this came to be. What encouraged you to proceed even without a contract being signed? Because I know you had been doing this work prior to this gentleman coming into play. So what made you take him at his word to move forward with this program and without a signed contract?
My heart and my faith.
Yeah. I feel extremely bad for you and for the children, because this is not a way to do business, isn't it? This is not a way to treat folk who are trying to do right by children, and this is absolutely no way to treat kids. And so for me, I feel for you, and I'm going to continue talking about this issue here on the station. So hopefully the right people, maybe some of these people whose names appear in this article, can come together and step up and get you paid and get your staff paid, and make certain that we make it right by the other institution over at Bricolage and at the Dryas YMCA, because this to me is egregious. And I don't understand why we continue to allow people to come up in our city and do wrong by our people, and it's just like it's just another day. It's just another day, another swindle. I'm upset about this, and I have no dog in the fight. I didn't work. I don't even know you. I think we've met, but I don't know you personally. But I care. I care about kids, and I care about people who have a vested interest in kids. So I care about you, and I hope that this is made right. And I hope that you continue to tell your story, and maybe another article can come out with the perspective of those who have been harmed by this situation and who need to be made whole. So thank you for joining us this morning. And again, I want you to know we're going to keep amplifying it. And if you get an update, if you get paid, can you call in and let us know so that we can give the update to our listening audience?
Mr. Bender, it's Will Sutton.
Yes, sir.
Can you let him? I want to answer to that, Will. One second. Can you, when you get an update, Ray, can you come back and give it to us so that we can give it to our listening audience? Because the folk who listen to WBOK are going to be making phone calls and write letters, because this is a real, these are invested listeners. They're going to make certain that they're calling and writing to make certain that you get what is due to you. So please come back and give us any updates. Should you get paid, we want to know about it. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Great.
Go ahead, Will.
So have you heard from any elected officials since this news have broken in the last few days, invested in hearing about what happened and wanting to figure out what can be done?
Absolutely. I have spoken directly with Councilman Thomas as well as Councilman Green, because they both have a vested interest. in ensuring, and as well as other council members that I've had conversations with before. I haven't talked to them specifically about this event, but those two individuals, obviously because Councilman Thomas is in this district,
Right.
and as well as with Councilman Green, his name was brought up by the sponsors several times as if the city was the ones responsible for paying this tab. But we found through a lot of, information up until this point that was never true. And so, because of that, that's another, another piece of what we were misled in believing that funding was already available. It was just on hold to be released, very soon. So it's just been this constant goalpost being moved, that kind of put us in this position. And just to add to it, because once I made the post on social media, there were a lot of people who started reaching out, a lot of people who started making donations. There's this one young lady, Miss Stephanie Chambers. I'm going to continue to shout her name out because she's been very, very instrumental in getting the word out to so many people. We've had state reps and other elected officials that have reached out and have provided funding to help us get back to these babies, to get them back in the space. Because at this point, I started a GoFundMe because a lot of the community asked us to, and we may not get to the number. Like, I may honestly never see the money, and I've kind of come to peace with that. It hurts, but I'm at peace.
No, we gonna get your pay rate. And listen, I appreciate you joining us, but we're gonna put enough pressure on the right people to ensure that this is made right, because there's a letter going around with some very influential people's names on it, and it was authored by a very influential person in the city, and somebody gonna have to be held to account for this. So I want to make sure that we're gonna keep amplifying the story here, and I appreciate you for joining us this morning, and I hope you the best. But we're gonna keep talking about it in hopes that the money is made, that this is made right. I'm sorry that it happened to you, but we're going to keep talking about it, and we're going to keep pushing, and you let us know if you get paid, okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Ray. Listen, we got to go. It's been quite the show. We want to thank Tiffany White from the Louisiana Children's Museum, our council members, Georgia Russo and Freddie King, for joining us this morning, as well as Mr. Ray Bender of the Hangout Nolan. All of you who are engaging in the chat and listening and streaming online, we appreciate you. Y'all stay tuned. Up next for the Front Porch, we're created in Kimba. But as far as the Good Morning Show, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt, Will Sutton, and Aaron Sanders, we'll see y'all tomorrow. This is WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about
all day long.